Episode 208 Above Ground Podcast. Arms wide open.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley. What's up, everyone? Welcome to
Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below. You know, we gotta right away.
Okay.
Just for a second, I actually just went through our email recently, and somebody sent us an email. I don't know who it was. It was a name I could not pronounce. And the only headline was, what does serve below mean? What does you can't serve below mean? And then the email body was some just random stuff put together. So clearly someone may be having a difficult time, but there was nothing in it that was was major. But so what does
that mean, Will?
What does can't serve below mean? It means that, from my standpoint and viewpoint, when I came up with that, it was about being dead from suicide. Honestly, that's really where it is.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought it was.
Because here's the thing: if you don't wake up tomorrow, you can't serve yourself, nor can you serve anything else. You can serve as a guidepost, but that's not necessarily the best way to serve.
No, I think we by waking up, and staying above, we all have a purpose.
That's right, and staying above is the purpose. It's to stay above,
you can't,
and to,
like you said, you can't serve below the ground. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't do what you're meant to do, or
nope. And you can't find what you're meant to do. Because I know that there's times where you're lost in yourself and you can't find a way out. However, all the answers are there. They're just a little bit hard to find. And you got to just dig around some of the mess in the closet, man. And
352 pickup.
There you go.
It's a puzzle that somebody just fucking threw on the ground.
Yep. Just start putting pieces together. If they don't fit, take them apart, put them into something else, try them.
Speaking of puzzles being thrown on the ground, have you ever had your heart thrown on the ground?
Dude, I've had my heart thrown on the ground more than I can painfully thrown on the ground several times. I think we all deal with that.
I'm sure.
As men, I think it's a little different because men don't necessarily openly talk about the damage, the hurt, the pain, or even maybe even think about any of that stuff. So this week we have a good friend in the studio again.
As a crutch for our pain.
Don't call me a crutch. I deserve a better title than that. I mean, why am I here? Only to provide aid and support to you feeble men?
Okay,
why am I here?
He's the ex-voice.
He's the ex-voice.
I've been demoted. Well,
not really demoted.
No, I think I had my time in the sunshine and now I must go out to pasture. But the reason I'm here today is to be a part of this conversation, to include more men in this conversation, to have my voice be heard publicly, and to expose that part of myself I feel needs to be exposed in order to make others comfortable to do the same themselves.
Correct.
That's right.
Let's hit that nail on the head.
All right. Let's build some houses.
Let's build some houses.
Tim, that would be cool. I'd love to build some houses.
Tim and Will, it's so good to see you guys again and be here with you.
Jordan, it's good to see you, man.
Thank you for having me here.
And it's good to be seen, right?
Absolutely.
That means we're staying above.
Stay above. Stay above ground. Live another day.
That's right.
Exactly.
Relationships are difficult, aren't they?
Yes. Well, you know what? Well, that's a good place to start. Relationships are difficult in a normal circumstance.
In a healthy.
But what happens when you throw on bad attachment styles,
mental illness, drug addiction,
any of it, right? Trauma,
yeah.
all of it. What happens when you do all of this, and where does that go? And And how does that set the stage? I can tell you this. I had no idea how bad my attachments have been until recently. And that's because I have been forced to look at every attachment in my entire life as I have
Undressed.
Yeah, I've undressed. As I've separated myself from. So needless to say, I have become separated recently in the last few months, and not in the last few months. This has been going on for quite a while, but I've been living on my own now and trying to get used to different things, and I have recently had some aha moments just dealing with attachment styles, because I've been doing a lot of work trying to figure out where I've been wrong, and I've allowed cycles to carry on, and I've chosen to end cycles also, and those things hurt, and they're painful, and they're ugly to look at. They're bad, but I didn't realize how bad my attachment to my mother would affect every other relationship I've had. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female. It's a relationship thing. And I didn't realize that my attachment style was so bad.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question about that. Would you have realized that about yourself if you hadn't gone through this most recent separation of yours?
I've always known that I've had a very weird relationship with everyone around me.
What do you mean weird? Like, define that, because weird according to who? Yourself or others? Weird because it never feels right?
Weird because of how relationships make me feel. And it doesn't matter if it's a parental relationship or a personal relationship. Doesn't matter. Because those styles are all the same. They just kind of, I think that they have different tentacles reaching out to different people.
I was just talking to somebody about sort of that what you just said, and I think everything is, when you kind of strip it down, is interpersonal relationship. Everything is interpersonal. Like, you know what I mean? Whether it's on a romantic side, whether it's your boss at work, whether it's your peers, friends, family. You have to, you know what I mean? You're interacting with people, so there's so many variables when it comes to this
lots
stuff.
of variables, and you're forced to kind of cooperate with individuals who aren't able to cooperate with you as a person, or who you are, aren't able to anticipate your needs in a situation, and don't always have your best interest in mind. That's the most difficult part that I've found about in sustaining these difficult relationships, is like you're not always going to get back what you're putting in, and also what you crave or desire from that relationship isn't always what you get as an outcome. So you got to set up your expectations going into it, or at least you should think about that first.
Or just leave some expectations behind and just be open. And create that kind of what you said, like maybe instead of like an expectation, create like, these are my values going into this.
But see, that's the difficult part, is many people don't know what their values are.
Sure.
So they go into it with their eyes closed and their arms wide open, and just getting whatever they may receive from it.
All right, so 4 attachment styles.
4 attachment styles.
Secure. Avoidant.
Anxious, preoccupied.
Anxious.
Avoidant, dismissive. Disorganized. Fearful, avoidant, and secure.
And it's funny, I don't know if you can look it up, but I know I've listened to a book on attachment, and it was like the people that have a secure attachment style, it's seriously like 1 in 200.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's nuts.
I'm sure it is, because how can you have a secure attachment when I'm actually listening to a great course about human behavior right now, and they're just talking about how monkeys like attach to their parents and how they become part of the group, and it's just like, it's bizarre just how it's weird how maybe it's not weird. Maybe we just feel weird because we think that everybody else is so normal.
I gotta,
because
I gotta use this for a minute, just because like this is crazy. Because I was just talking to someone about this. We were just having a discussion, and they had given me tips from their therapist. So this, I'm sure no one will hear it, but anyways, if he does, I'll give him credit, Dr. Todd. But these are questions to ask, and it's a direct order. And from what I understand, these are questions that you first ask yourself, and then after you answer them, then you ask it, not really like you ask it yourself, but for the other person. So the first question is it safe? Is it healthy? The second is it respectful? And the third, is it sustainable? So you ask yourself those questions, and then you kind of say, am I being safe and respectful to Will? Am I being, is this relationship that we have for the podcast sustainable? That kind of thing. So I felt that it was like, it just hit me, and I was like, these are questions that you can ask yourself, and you can find your values through this even, I think. I mean, you should know some of them, but you can still find some through that. And you can also develop boundaries through that. Like if you know what you want, and if you can identify what is safe and healthy for you, you can say, over here, this is safe and healthy for me. Over here, this is not. So this is what I'm willing to work with. This is what I'm not willing to work with.
So all of what you're putting out here to me sounds like a better way that a broken person would reorganize themselves and go forward into their next relationship, a better relationship based on what they've learned from being broken in the past. Because no one going into a relationship for their first time around would ever know any of these things. They wouldn't have to know.
And you know what?
And I don't think.
But I'm going to say most people aren't going to know them after 3 relationships.
Good point.
Because most people, we know this. Most people aren't asking those questions.
But I'm saying I didn't know.
But they're great questions.
That's what I mean, and I don't think I don't know specifically if they're intended specifically for relationships, but it's like kind of like an overall maybe problem solving. Which it
sounds like an idea. It sounds like is this right? A concept like is this safe? Okay, am I safe or am I?
You can't have anything sustainable without meeting the first two. I think and you can't.
I agree.
And you can't have anything that is considered respectful to yourself if it's not safe or healthy for you, right? It's like it's just eye-opening questions.
Yeah, I guess if it feels disrespectful, then it's not healthy.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
And that's, and obviously. And you know what, man? I think in every relationship, especially depending on how long you're in a relationship with somebody, you run through all of those things, I think, between both parties.
And I would like to take it back because what Jordan said earlier about like when you're dealing with people that are... maybe they're not looking out for your best needs, or they're doing things for something in return. So. I guess what I'm saying is look back at your primary caretaker, your caregiver.
That's where it all comes from.
Right.
It's what Will said. His problem with relationships now, it's all started with his relationship with his mom.
Right, and it's everyone. It's all my relationships, and I've really been going through from starting with my friends, because there were things that I did as a kid out of defense mechanism, out of fear, out of everything that wasn't beneficial, that would have been better just for me to ignore.
Yeah,
as a kid, absolutely. but I didn't know any better to ignore it because.
Do you think by ignoring it, are you ignoring it because of the fear? Is that
no? So I'll tell you the story. So I had this. When we were kids, used to put fucking demos on 4 tracks. Yeah. Used to record on a cassette.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could only play one side of the cassette because the music would play backwards on the other side. So when I was 13, I got to record a demo in my basement, and my drummer at the time was having a hard time making making the drum pattern. So I wound up using a drum machine, and the guy recorded it for me. And the guy asked me to bring it by the store. He worked at the corner store down by my house. Awesome guy, always treated me great. And he wanted me to bring the demo by so somebody could hear it. And I was like, okay. And I was getting ready to go. And my dad says to me, he's like, well, you shouldn't do that. He's like, that guy wants to take your music. That guy wants to, like, you don't want to play that for him. And so I didn't go. That shut off that relationship for 6 months because I couldn't go to that store anymore. That was an important part of my going around.
Which is fear.
Which was fear. And then I felt bad because I screwed over my friend by not showing up.
Did your friend care about the drummer care about the drum machine
The
thing?
drummer didn't care as much about that.
Okay.
As the fact that I just didn't come to the store.
Sure. Okay.
And trust me, I stayed away from the store for about 3 months, and then I finally said I got to go and apologize because I want to hang out. I can't I don't want to. I want to be part of the group.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the part of this.
That's kind of cool though that you caught on that. I think that's pretty quick actually.
Well, I apologized. I told him exactly why I had done it, and he's like, look, he's like, you can come hang out at the store. He's like, I don't know how good of friends we'll be after this, but we became really better friends actually after that. But it was just one of those things that, but I've been going back and forth to all of this. Because that's the thing, man. In 51 years, I've actually had a few lives at this point. And
so by going back to these things back and forth, are you finding a common denominator?
Yeah. I find that a lot of my inability to trust people has been because I feel like I'm always going to be left. Regardless of whether I see proof of that or not, I think I'm going to be left. Sure. I've always felt that way. And it's happened. It's happened more times than not.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by left?
Abandoned.
Left behind.
I have abandonment syndrome. I have an abandonment issues.
They fall under one of the categories.
Yeah, I have abandonment issues that I've worked on. I don't have I don't feel abandoned now at all.
I do as well too. It just means that you never really, and I'm not talking to you specifically, it's just you never really had a secure, concrete example of someone that's going to support you and stick by you. It was never there. It was always there was always conditional.
Yes, and that's and when I say transactional, that's the way it always feels to me. It always feels transactional. Relationships feel transactional. I've said that to my therapist. I've said that over and over again.
Well, let's go down this road. They feel transactional.
They often feel not everything in relationships feels transactional, but a lot of things do.
But are they transactional?
I think sometimes they can be, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're in a relationship,
sometimes it's our own distortions, our own perceptions which again, past relationships are going to bring that in there. Yes. And that's what I was going to ask you is you have these past relationships that are, I'm going to use the word tainting, okay, just because I can, that are tainting these, they're forming these black clouds and they're going over, those black clouds are carrying with you and they're starting to form over your current relationships in the present.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you bring a piece of the past with you.
Oh, absolutely, you do.
Okay,
so what I'm saying is how do we become mindful and acknowledge it and accept it and then work through it? Is that something we just trial and error?
Yes.
Yeah. It's trial and error. It's just discovering what works for you and being honest with yourself in the attempt to discover why or why not this works for you. It's but you can bring the past with you.
So you got to figure out what works for you, I think.
For you as an individual, but also for the people that you choose to form relationships with. If you're in a relationship with someone that you're using your past examples of what a relationship is with them and it doesn't serve this current relationship, then you're using an outdated model. Time to upgrade the software.
Nice.
That's good.
Nice. That is good.
So okay, you're discussing your mother. We know a bit about your mother. My mother, passive aggressive, right? And she wanted to be my friend, which is the worst kind of mother because she'll let you get away with anything just as long as you're nice to her.
Young though, too, right?
She was young, yeah. And
my mom did that too.
So mom wanted to be cool. So what did mom do? She never seriously disciplined me. and I could do whatever I wanted, which means I never really took her seriously, which is a bad relationship to have with someone who has authority over you, so to speak.
Well, she never set boundaries.
There was no boundaries.
There's no boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of, and granted, obviously your mom being young, I don't know what else she was up against. So
so much. It's long story short, I had a perfect, ideal life until I was 5, and then my parents got divorced. After that, it was less than ideal. My mother, I believe, suffered the most in the separation because she sought love sought love in a multitude of places where love wasn't part of the relationship. It was desire.
Transactional.
But
transactional to fill a need
okay.
that she had that unfortunately caused her to not be able to be present for you.
Absolutely. So in me, as a young person observing this as her son, I lost respect for my mother, although I didn't know it at the time. And that may or may not have formed my conclusion or overall conclusion about women leading up to some of my first relationships as a young man. That not that women are not to be respected, but I can pretty much do whatever I want and get away with it. And because I wasn't as observant of other people's boundaries as I wanted them to be of mine, it was a bad transaction. It's a bad transactional relationship. I was taking more than I was giving. That's a big mistake, because as a power-hungry, entitled youth, I sought to seek out more than I had earned, and I think that's what they call
well, it's entitlement.
Entitlement.
We all suffer from that.
Oh, sure.
I was too.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think it's kind of, it's in the soup, right?
It is in the soup because I think any of us especially in this country.
So cool. It's part of the soup. So we all go through it. We have to chew that bite of the soup and learn from it, and then we do better in the future. And that's a process we all go through. And I find myself somewhere in that process as we speak, and it's interesting to reach a stage in your life where you're forced to analyze yourself and decide whether or not this serves you going forward, because you know what's next. Okay. What's next? Well, I'm not 19 anymore. I'm 37 going on whatever comes next. So I have to anticipate the way life may look going down the road and understand that my previous ways may not serve me. Obviously, I want to be a better person. Obviously, I want to be a better husband. Obviously, I want to be a better friend, son, everything.
Sure. I think by doing that, I think those are like, I don't know the word I want to use, but they just happen naturally, like spread out to be a better son. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As you getting, like, I think it was Ram Dass that said it, like, the only thing I can't do anything for you but work on myself. And I think that kind of goes with that. And I agree.
And you're right. And I didn't want to cut you off, but I kind of wanted to piggyback on what you shared, because that is true. Like
I believe it.
But what happens, I think, and this is a fact for me anyway, I like having a hard enough time trying to stay above ground during a good portion of my last 20 years, because I mean it's been 20 years. Like, it's been 20 years this year, 10 years this year since then.
Wow.
So in that last 10 years, a lot of things have changed, and I've changed a lot. But there's things that I've dragged through that I failed to see, and
I wouldn't say that you failed to see it. They were blind spots.
Dude,
I know, but
beyond
you know what?
blind spots.
I get it, but hey, look, I know. I'm just trying to say, like, when you say that, your brain picks up on it, you're just kind of like contributing. Like when you failed to see, it's like
you do deserve some credit here. I mean, it wasn't like you were blind.
No,
entirely.
No, and I'm not saying that, but the thing is that obviously relationships are hard, as we started this whole thing with. It is, but it's hard to just be yourself alone, let alone having to be yourself with another person.
Right, and something you just said was, I know for, like, there's probably a lot of people that shouldn't be in relationships or shouldn't be trying to be in relationships, and I can say that because I'm probably one of them. I've looked for relationships and I probably shouldn't have because, kind of like what Jordan said just a little while ago. It's like you come to that point where you look at yourself and you have to, But for me, what I notice is I do that, and then I'm like, okay. But as I'm doing that, I'm like noticing other loads of shit that has been dumped, and I'm like. And I just get overwhelmed. Like it's like you uncover something, and something else comes up. You dig something up, and you find other shit. And I'm like trying to juggle. And I'm like, I got this. I got my attachment styles. I've got, my inner child. I've got my abandonment issues and my attachment style issues. And it's just like, do I have any right to be in a relationship?
Yeah, you know why? Because you just mentioned all those things, and if you're actually working on all those things,
and
then
aware
you're
of those things,
and aware of all those things. Yeah. Being aware of those things is one thing, okay? You can be aware because being aware is just like wishing on something. You can wish on anything, but unless you do any work, the wish isn't going to happen, right? And all those things affect the other. So of course, when you think about your attachment style, you're thinking about this, you're thinking about that. It's because everything is related. And everything is together. So of course you are. And granted, maybe I'll say this. Half the people probably walking around right now probably shouldn't be in the relationships they're in either. Because you look at people sure as hell don't look happy half the time when you see them.
It's hard to say, It's sometimes I think even the older generations, if you got into a relationship and you got married, it's like, I don't know. I'll say it. There's something kind of, I don't know. Like there's something to say about being married. It's not something to take lightly. It's not something to just kind of walk away from. So, when you're in a relationship and maybe it's not working or you feel lack in some areas or more than one areas, it's hard to deal with all these things we're talking about, to deal with that lack, and then to deal with, hey, you know what, like this is pressure because we should try and work on this. I want to work on this because, we have something here. So it's hard to kind of let go of all that stuff and just go, well, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, am I being respectful to myself? Is this safe and healthy for myself? I think that comes first. For me...
Let me ask you, what do you want in a relationship? And why is it so hard to find?
Oh, time's up, ladies and gentlemen.
Answer the damn question.
Bullshit. Answer the question.
Make it simple, Angela. What do you want in a relationship?
Simple. What do I want in a relationship?
And why is it so hard to find?
Oh, fuck you.
No, fuck you. Answer the question.
Yeah, come on, man. You do this all the time with me. You do. You've done this.
All right. I want, I would like to have somebody that wants to work on themselves, is in that kind of journey, you know what I mean, to better themselves, to do better, learn better.
Well, pause there. Do you want them to bring that to the relationship, or do you want to introduce that to them through the relationship?
I'd probably prefer the first, like bring it.
They bring it with them.
As long as they're open to it. Otherwise, as long as they're open to it. But I would like to have, I have some skills, but I certainly couldn't carry a relationship.
Well, that's a good thing you wouldn't have to if you found the right person.
Right, but there's that right person, you know what I mean? So you have to be, I need funny, I need laughter, I need respect. I need a willingness to work on things and to be open, open, honest, truthful communication. I'm not the best at conflict resolution. So, somebody with that kind of would be good. Somebody that's, did I say understanding? I think understanding and patience, because I have my own hurdles that I bring to the table, and I know that I have them. I know that I'm a bit closed off. We'll talk about that fear, the attachment styles. I have severe abandonment issues. So what I've done in the past is kind of, I guess you could classify under self-sabotage. And this is something that I literally discovered within like 24 hours. So it's just weird we're having this conversation. I try to not only control the situation, but I try to control like the other's reaction. So it's a fear-based response.
Could you elaborate
reaction.
on that a bit? Like, kind of.
Well, I guess if I want this conversation to go a different way, say, so I'll try to work on like pleasing Will and like directing him to go this way. So we, you know what I mean? Instead of just maybe saying what's on my mind in a respectful way for both of us, kind of facing my emotions and what I'm feeling and just saying it instead of the fear. So the fear basically stands in my way and I have to go around it. And the funny thing is what I'm fearful of is usually what ends up happening anyways because I don't confront anything and I just go around it.
So you're taking the long way.
Yeah, but the long way happens and you stumble and stumble and stumble and then you're like, wait a minute, this is the thing that I feared that's going to happen, but now it's happening.
You just created your own suffering too.
Yeah. So it's like a bit of social engineering.
And the circle continues.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the cycle continues. And that's the thing too. Like, and it's so hard because we obviously get into relationships for many different reasons. Mm-hmm. But at the heart of it, a lot of us get into relationships to fill holes and to fill gaps and to fill lacks and to fill this void that we have. And the thing is that when I discovered, when I realized that I will never fill this hole, I can only placate around the area. The hole will never ever fill up. It actually allowed me to let go a little bit because no relationship with anyone except for myself is going to allow that hole to stay closed where it doesn't open again. Because the hole right now is closed. It's a big area, but it's not a hole. Like I'm not seeping into it.
And it's kind of unfair and maybe I'll even say disrespectful to like expect someone else to fill that hole for you. Like put that weight on them.
Well,
like
absolutely.
You have to,
absolutely. But again, I never did that intentionally.
No, sure. No. Yeah. Let me say that. Like a lot of these things are, and again, I'm finding this stuff out now because I'm trying to be more mindful and I'm really like meditating on it and connecting the dots as we talk about, So
you got to make the constellations.
And you go back and you're like, what is coming up? Why? What is this? And it's like
connect the stars and they'll guide your way, man.
Let me ask you guys this. So you ever think that you're ready for a relationship and then you get in and then like some stuff pops up and you're just like, whoa, maybe I'm not ready for a relationship.
Yes.
You get scared of things.
Yes.
Yeah. You're bound to find some monsters under that bed.
Oh.
So is it things that I guess is it real monsters or is it?
Yeah, I mean it depends on what you're looking for in the relationship. If you're looking for purity, sanity, a person who can anticipate all of your unspoken emotional needs, then you're going to find all of those monsters because you just set yourself up for an unrealistic outcome.
Okay, but like flip it around. Like Will has talked before about the fear of actually like going through and having things work out.
Yeah, because there's that fear too.
Right.
Because you can have that fear on the other end of it.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying too. Like them. Like so. I'm just saying. Is it like? Is it the person who's having these fears? Is that more of like that self-sabotage or?
So unfortunately for me, not unfortunately for me. I mean, that's great that I can remember shit, but I haven't forgotten a fucking thing most of the time. Like there's certain things that I may not remember. I can go back to my relationship and I know in the beginning, I made the intent that my ex-wife now is a very good person. She's an amazing person. And I knew she was an amazing person then. Mm-hmm. But there were some red flags. But I equated those red flags to her being 9 years younger than me and not having the experience that I have. And in a lot of ways, by making those decisions, that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. But then eventually you find out that may not have been the best way, or may not have been the good thing. But of course, hindsight is 20/20.
And
we change.
Everybody changes. So I think,
and I can't expect anyone to go through living day after day wondering if your husband is going to stay alive. Okay, I can't fault anybody for that.
No, yeah, for sure.
But I can tell you this: I ain't fucking going anywhere. That is for sure. Like, I am not going anywhere. That is not on my radar whatsoever, man. I am here to fulfill my purpose, which is to spread hope to every person that I can spread to.
I think, some of the, just by talking about this right now, I feel like checking in with yourself, but also checking in with the relationship. Like, some people have been married. How long have you been married, Jordan, if you don't?
Been married.
Mind me asking. I didn't want to put you on the spot. Now she's going to be mad because you don't know.
we were coming up on our 11th wedding anniversary. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
11 years. I didn't realize it was that long. Good for you.
Been together forever. Yeah.
All right, so 11 years, some people are just like, 11 years. Like, we're good and we're kind of sailing. Like, but I think that, maybe everybody should, that's in a relationship, check in with the relationship. Not only check in with yourself, but reevaluate and go, hey, like, do we still have these goals? Do we still have the same values?
Yeah.
And work on that together and find out, like, hey, I've been working a lot lately, and I'm sorry if do you still feel cared for? Do you still feel needed? And just check in. It doesn't have to be an argument, and it's not about, I think it's the opposite. It's not about, like, trying to create something that's not there. It's just making sure and checking in.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times in recent memory my wife and I have had those check-ins where we've started the conversation after lunch, and then the sun's going down, and we have to turn the lamp on in the living room because we're still talking.
That's good.
You know how great that is?
That is good, man. You guys are
We're not
lucky.
going to finish this conversation until we both get a meaningful conclusion, because we can go down every avenue of this conversation, but let's define what we want first before we just go into this exploration of emotion. Like, where do we want to end up here? Okay, define your outcome. Let's work towards that. And that's what we do. We do these check-ins, and they're mostly unprovoked. It's like they just happen when they're supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like, sit down, we need to have a check-in. It's no like authority or like forcefulness involved in this. It's at this point, having, let's not minimize this. The pandemic was really difficult in most people's relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a really difficult time going through this pandemic, not because of the disease, but because of the emotional attributes that it, came from the society kind of being disrupted. So it forced us to really take good, hard looks at ourselves, and then understand that, yes, people do change in a relationship, and the woman that I married doesn't exist anymore. And in fact, I'm married to an entirely different woman, and that requires me to update my software and continue learning this person. And
Okay.
I'll also update myself.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's where we're at
So yeah,
now.
so I mean, it kind of makes sense to check in too, right? Because of that
You
reason
have to do the check-ins.
alone. But I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
and just I don't have the answers, but maybe that's a excellent way to start and be proactive in the situation.
It requires two people, and you can't just approach this from a one-sided playing field. You need both people to be involved in this. And that's where you start. You start with both people agreeing to work towards these check-ins.
A willingness. That's
Yeah,
what I was
yeah.
saying. Is a willingness and understanding.
And then what happens if you come to the fact that you're on separate pages?
See that right there? I'm sorry, but let me just stop, because that's what I guess a better example of earlier talking about the fear. That would be right there. Like, in my head, I'd be thinking that, and then I go, well, I'm not going to ask this question because I'm fearful of what Jordan's going to say.
Fear is very real, isn't it?
But beyond the fear, what if you do ask the question and you find out you're on separate pages? Then what?
Did you expect to be on the same page this entire time?
It's okay to be on maybe separate pages, but here's the thing: like it's there's where that willingness comes in. Like, we know a couple that have been married for a long time, and even if you look at them, they're pretty opposite.
Yep.
You know, the one likes to go to the gym and listen to, plays in a band, listens to music, does that kind of thing. Like, that's a big part of him. And the other one is like a, more wholesome, more, homemaker, more old fashioned in that sense, So you would,
traditional, I guess, in a way. Traditional in a way, I guess.
That's a fair word. And
I think it's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not always like, are we on the same page? It's, hey, I might not be on the same page, but are you okay with that? You know what I mean? Like, you like to stay up and go out late. That's fine. I don't like it, but if we can work it out and we can communicate, like Will's like, I'm going to go out tonight and might be late and I don't know what's going on. As long as I'm like okay with it.
All right, so let me say this. If there's any people listening out there who are new to a relationship and it's starting to get serious and you really like one another, anticipate that you're going to go through stages of your relationship. The first stage is the honeymoon period.
Yeah, the honeymoon period.
You're going to be obsessed with one another. And if the relationship's good, then you're going to be really obsessed with one another. And then time goes on. Years pass by.
That's the oxytocin.
Then you grow apart. But
you get what our famous word is.
What's that?
Get to do the dailies.
The dailies.
It's the dailies that destroy everything, because if you're not, that's the
I don't
thing.
know if they destroy,
you can
wait a
have,
minute.
but
I
if you can have,
destroy everything.
you can have fun all the time on your
They
vacations.
can destroy everything.
But what happens if your dailies just fucking destroy
They
it?
can either destroy it or they can make it stronger.
Yeah.
I think there's a purpose to those dailies. I think there's a safety from knowing that your companion is there every day. You're going to wake up every day and there's a companion.
Will and I are like, wait.
You're not tripping over
you
yourself.
Think that?
Wait, you actually think that? There's no companion. There's no companion.
Well, I think
my shadow.
Part of like having abandonment issues is just that constant worry that they're not going to be there.
Okay, we'll address that worry. That's part of the relationship.
Yeah,
but what happens when they're really not?
It's
That's
not
the
even
reality.
that though. Sometimes it's a. They're not gonna. You've addressed it, and you still there's that, like you said in the very beginning of this conversation, like being brought up. Maybe your parents were like, put bad things in your head and gave you bad examples, and then you adapted those. You know what I mean? And you carry those. Some of them are embedded, and I'm not saying you can't work on them, but it's not that easy where you can just go, oh, okay, you're good. Like, I trust that you're going to be here tomorrow.
No, I get it.
You can't turn that off.
No, I get it. It's a part of you as much as the color of your eyes or your height.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Who you are.
So that again, that's kind of for me. Like, you'd have to have that understanding and willingness to, a healthy relationship takes work.
It breaks my heart, but maybe there is a time and a place for separation to go your separate ways, and maybe it is beneficial in the long run. I like to think I'm more of a romantic. I really am, and I like to think that relationships do change, but just because they're different doesn't mean that they're any less valuable than they were when you started the relationship.
Yeah, well said. And they could be even more. If you have you guys check in with in your relationship, I think. With life, with our mental health challenges, we, gain resilience every time we,
That's it.
Conquer something or go make it through something. Then we're like, hey, you know what? Like, maybe it still have fear and I still am uncomfortable and I still have anxiety, but last time this happened, I made it through. Like, here I am a year later. So just knowing that you will be okay is a big, big step.
Yeah.
So just having that is...
I can sit here and I'm staring you right in the eye right now. I'm okay.
I think so. From where I'm sitting, you are.
Nice.
You know how life has felt recently? Let's pivot for a bit. Life has felt recently like I'm standing in the back of a very big crowd. I'm on a concert and I'm looking at the stage, and the stage is a quarter mile away. And I want to get to the stage, but the crowd's so thick. The people are so numerous, I can't see a path forward. I don't know where to go. I feel that resistance in life recently. I feel like I'm directionless without a path to where I'm being compelled to move towards. And that's how relationships are sometimes. You don't see a way out. So you leave the concert? No. Stand in the back, watch for a bit. You'll find your time, and you'll move forward when it's right.
That's good.
Wow. That was
Because usually resistance will be, the thing that kind of makes people turn around, and or whatever.
Yes.
You get that resistance,
Yes.
and that resistance can create a lot of other problems.
Bring them out of you.
Resistance works both ways, though, too. Resistance can force you to leave a relationship,
Yeah.
but it can force you to stay in a relationship, too.
Yeah.
That may not be beneficial.
Because sometimes
too, so.
I've found that once I feel that resistance, I feel like I can't see it, but right there, now something's going to happen. Like I'm going to break through another. You know what I mean? That resistance is like, hey, you're so close. You're like a footstep away.
Yeah.
This is almost like a test.
It's usually the case, and sometimes when you break through that resistance, you find more resistance. And
Sure.
then more resistance.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
You're always going to find resistance.
Yeah.
You're never going to get away
as long
from
as you
resistance.
keep going.
Are you in love with the resistance?
I mean, I don't know if you have to love the resistance as much as you just have to accept the resistance.
Yeah, you have to accept the resistance because without resistance,
There's no growth.
there's no growth.
Right.
And what are we working towards here? What is this podcast about, anyways? Relationships. I mean,
It's about hope.
it's a fight.
That's right. Everything's a fight.
You just fart?
I did just fart.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing it out.
I didn't.
Yeah, thanks for
Well, I
pointing
did.
that out, Jordan.
You did.
That was good. I think we covered some stuff on a whim that we may not have covered before if we didn't just jump in and talk about,
That's what we do here. We just jump in, man. That's
with
it.
arms wide open.
Arms wide open.
So sometimes you gotta,
And a really cool hat.
it wasn't cheap. Sometimes you got to dive into that dirty water.
Dirty water.
Dirty water running deep.
You do have to jump in, even though you can't see the bottom sometimes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what the best thing to do also is once you jump in and to let it settle, then you can see.
That's it.
You're closer to it.
I think it's called faith.
It is. Letting go.
Yeah. Surrender.
Surrender.
Surrender. My
Will's like, surrender, that's a bit of a problem.
You're going to like this, Will. My father said last year when I was fishing with him, we're having a conversation about surrender. He says, I've left claw marks in anything I've ever surrendered to.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And there you go.
That's it.
See, that's the problem too. And it's same thing for me, man. I've got claw marks in a lot of things. And had I just let go, maybe I'd have been a little bit better.
Who knows?
Because that's really, letting go is. Letting go is the hardest part, man. Letting go is the letting go is the hardest part, man. That's
It is. It is.
and trusting. And
Trusting.
Not even attachment styles, but that's just attaching. You know what I mean? I think we're attaching to that thing that we're clinging to.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And we're clinging. And we're creating more suffering by clinging. And
Yeah.
it's just that. It's that it's that never-ending cycle of pain that we create for ourselves.
Yeah, because the pain's going to be there. It's just a matter of if we fixate on it, it's just creating more pain. It's just creating more suffering on top of the pain. It's like carrying around those extra anchors, I think.
Yeah,
The
it
extra
is.
weight.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Jordan,
Yes, sir.
it was great to see you, man.
It's great to be seen. Great to be here. I'm so excited you folks decided to invite me back for another conversation. I'm just tickled pink.
Thank
Wow.
you.
You don't quite-
Thank you both for opening up.
That hat looks a little black, though. It doesn't look very pink.
The hat's black, and as you know, these hats are not cheap.
No, it's not a cheap
This
hat.
is not a cheap
no,
hat.
it's definitely not the cheapest hat online.
That's not the cheapest hat online. I bet you got that out of the clearance bin at
Below-
Marshall's.
Below the clearance bin.
Below it. It was underneath.
Underneath.
Inside jokes, people. You wouldn't get it. No time to explain.
Well, Timmy.
Relationships, where are you at?
Yeah, where are you at? Well, let us know where you're at. abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com or leave a comment on our Instagram page. Until next week, get well.
Be safe.
Stay
above. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.